YouTube? Welcome back to UniXTCG, and if you saw the short, you know it is pretty late where I am. It's about to be 5 a.m. Had a late flight that got in from Treasure Cup Miami, and I am ready to start on the content. Quick little recap. This is going to be my deck profile for the event. That's going to be a short part because it didn't make it as far as I wanted to. And then we're going to talk about the tournament breakdown for me, the matches. I played out all 9. And then on top of that, I just wanted to let you guys know that this week is going to be jam-packed. I will be busy trying to make sure I practice for Dallas because I will be going there in 2 weeks. But we've got so much to do. We've got breakdowns for how the event went. We have a deck profile from a local content creator who barely missed top cut. I'm talking was 16th place going into round 9, and then won his match. And then the ties breakers slipped him down to 17th. So he was going to be this close to being the only Zoro that topped this tournament. It's pretty cool. We're going to have a huge week, and then we're going to start sliding into set 2 content. So, without further ado, I want to say that we are 50 subscribers, just about 50 subscribers away from hitting that magical 4,000, and that means a lot to me. But if you're watching this and you want to join the UniX fam, just go on there, like the video, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button so you don't miss a beat, and maybe even comment because that helps the video trend. And we are going to keep doing so much more content. Then, right before we get into the actual meat and potatoes, I do want to say that we are still doing the giveaway for the film decks. So if you want to join that, links in the description for the video, and I will be processing the entries that I've missed while being at the Treasure Cup this week. So let's hop into it. I'll show you the deck list first off. All right, going over the deck list real quick. We'll try to be pretty quick with this one because I want to focus more on the matchups. And of course, since I didn't top with this list, I'm going to say it matters a little less. But we got 4 Bonnie, 2 Momos. I think 2 to 3 Momos is the acceptable number if you're going to be running Momos, which I think you should because there's a fair amount of Wano in the deck. But yeah, just trying to make sure we have consistency with our searchers. 4 Beige Blocker. We've got 4 Scratch Poo. We got 4 Killer. We got 4 Cat Vipers. We have 3 Killers. The reason why I bumped it up to 3 was because I felt like there was going to be a lot of green mirrors, in which case Rhizos and Rhizos as well as Okikus are very important to clear off the board very quickly. But also a lot of red mirrors, and Robin, Beppo, as well as Zoros are easy bait for killers. Not to mention, you can get to points where you're swinging and swinging for neutral, swinging for 6, forcing a 2k from their hand only to tap 3 and play killer. And if they don't, then you just keep a 1k in hand. So I thought that I would just need to see this card a little bit more. 3 Rhizo because he's a search engine or a draw engine on his own when combined with the 1-drops or an A-drop kid. 3 Okiku. 3 or 4 could be good, but I played it at 3 right now because it was uncounterable and I felt like I saw it enough. Then you have the 4 Izo, 2 Beppo. This one's a little bit regrettable. I wanted extra combo power to be able to contest these unblockable swings from red, but I found that in a lot of times this weekend when I wasn't drawing optimally, I could not cruise into green, or cruise into 8-drop, and that really surprised me because in testing, I've been able to, testing locals, box events, I've been able to cruise into 8-drop pretty well. 2 X-Drake. Really, it's a bigger removal than Kid. It mostly comes into play when you're facing blue, because for the most part, it's just killing everything that Killer can kill, except for 2 more Dawn, but it has twice the body on it. However, against blue, it's a huge momentum play because you're blowing up what they got from their leader effect, and you're adding a bigger body to swing. 2 Basil Hawkins. This probably should have been 3 in retrospect, so in hindsight, but yeah, it's at 2 here. 2 Law. Personally, I was just finding that I would draw this card way too many times, and just in the games I had, I felt like I was seeing it too much and was only using 1 to 2 per game. Now, that being said, there is a higher level of priority that I could have probably put on playing these laws, but yeah, I used to have it at 3, put it down to 2 for this one, and yeah. Now we have 2 7-drops and 3 8-drops. I had these ratios, but I think I'm actually going to flip them. Because like I said, you have most of the game to find this 8-drop with your Bondi searches from your life, and the amount of times I ended up seeing this guy in my life when I needed more counter power, and I already had one established, was actually pretty wild. Or already had one about to be established. Meanwhile, you saw so many mirrors that the 7-drop just kind of felt like necessary, because it's just a huge boon to the mirror. I took out Paradise Waterfall. You guys kind of saw that I used to love putting Paradise Waterfall on the deck over Punk Gibson because it could be used in conjunction with the 8-drop the turn you play it. But at the same time, once I went down lower on laws and I only had 2 7-drops, I felt like the amount of blockers that Paradise Waterfall worked with was a little less consistent. However, it did help. It should help with things like when people swing for 5 on Raizo, you know, or 6 on Okiku. So there are things that I should just kind of put into perspective there. Now, Punk Gibson at 2 was great. It kind of overperformed, and so that one's definitely a card that's going up in my green builds for the future. But this is my list, and now I'm going to go into the rounds, and so you guys can understand how my tournament went. So, right before we get into this, always got to do the plug. If you want any of these singles, or if you want to pre-order some stuff, they actually got a restock on things like starter decks, the future Yamato, as well as like Black Luffy starter deck. You can always go to the sponsor. So let me just put the ad in real quick, and then we'll move along. So let's talk about our sponsor, Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all of your trading card game needs. On their site, you can buy or pre-order starter decks, boxes, even cases, as long as you try to give it about 3 to 4 months ahead of time for the pre-orders, because sometimes the product's a little too hot to keep on the shelves. If you want singles, you can go over to their TCG Player website, where you'll find nothing but product and great reviews. And if you even want to sell your collections, just hop on over to their Facebook page and message them directly, and you get a price worked out for you, best bang for your buck. And you know what? While you're here, let me throw you a little something extra. If you want 5% off of any purchases made on the site, make sure you use the link in the description, or at checkout, use the code WORSTGEN. That'll be on the screen as well, and I hope you find something you like with Mystic TCG. Alrighty. So, with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the tournament report. Round 1, flew all the way down to Florida just to face somebody that's from the DMV. Friend John Harrison. He's been in Dragon Ball for a while. That's why I mostly played games against him. Has a couple tops under his belt, but he was playing Big Daddy Kaido. So it was kind of a weird matchup, only because, you know, lots of people think that Kaido is an auto win against green, but a lot of people don't understand that, once again, Kid is a aggressive leader with a defensive slash utility deck. So you can flip the switch with your leader and become a very, very aggressive deck like that. So against him, I went straight into pressure mode. I was swinging with my leader every single turn, of course, just to peck away from his hand. I established Raizo early because the first couple turns, you know, until they can start playing things like 6-drop king, 7-drop king, you can, for the most part, know that the only way you can interact with your cards are by swinging on them. So I established Raizo pretty early, like on curve, played a 1-drop, tapped it, swung with Raizo with a Dominator, swung with my leader. We just had to make sure we got in all of the damage. Now, where things started getting a little hairy was when I swung and he flipped over a Basil from Trigger, and he just ramped, because that accelerated the entire scheme of what I was expecting by a full turn. He had Onigashima, I think 2 turns later than expected, but he was able to curve out pretty hard, and basically I was able to get him down to a point where he could not 10-drop me, and the last play of the game actually made it pretty close. I pretty much had to hold it close to the chest. He had a 10-drop, he had a queen, and he had his leader, but he was at 0 life. So, no, I think he was at 1 life. Yes. And so, basically, I had to make sure that I could not force him, but make it, you know, tasty enough to all-in me. So, he ended up swinging with his leader, and I blocked out of it. I had the beige up, and I comboed out of his leader, and I had, at this point, 1 life. So, he ended up swinging with no, I think I have 0 life, yeah. So he ended up swinging with Queen, because the only way he was going to be able to finesse my hand was by killing my blocker and then swinging with the 10-drop Kaido. So he swings with Queen, and I end up having to just let that go. Like, it was, well, not let that go. He swings with Queen for 7k with the Dawn under it, and I had the Ezo and a 1k in him, and that's what I ended up blocking. And after that, he realized, of course, he's tapped out. He's got 9-drop on board. There's the beige, 9-drop was from the last turn, mind you, and so he couldn't get past my beige to get my last life, and he only had 3 cards in hand at this point. I was going to swing twice with Kid, and he had dropped his blocker. So that was game 1. Game 2, we actually ended up facing Doflamingo. Doflamingo, it was kind of a close match. His curve was pretty strong. It was a little unorthodox. I haven't seen a lot of Doflamingos playing the 7-drop Croc, but he curved from Virgo into 7-drop Croc. And at first, it was kind of just a matter of keeping the 7-drop Croc out of my life so I wouldn't get banished. But towards the end of the game, it started getting to the point where he was wearing down my defenses, and he was able to, start pecking away. And so I ended up comboing out of his Croc swing, counting out his Croc swing, and I had Nekomamushi in hand. So he swings with his leader, and he takes, I blocked that too, I countered out of that. And he ends up putting Gecko Moria on board, and Gecko Moria gets a law back to his hand. So he's got 3 Dawn up at this point, and he plays Law Blocker, and I'm like, yes, because he has 0 life, and I have a Nekomamushi in hand. I'm ready to tap 2 and then swing at him twice for 10k with the 4 remaining cards in his hand. But then he taps 1 more, and he plays a second Law that was in his hand. And that's when it got hairy. So, of course, I draw. I Dawn up my leader to 10, and I swing, and he blocks with the first Law. Then I play Nekomamushi, and I tap his second Law, and I swing for 10 again. This is all of my Dawn used up, and he ends up with the Croc on board. With his last Dawn, he uses Overheat for 1, and then drops a Mihawk. I thought that I'd have a pretty good shot swinging into a 3-card hand, or was it 4 cards? But yeah, the 1 cost Overheat because of the Croc into the Mihawk made a full 5k counter power, or 6k counter power, putting him 1k above me. And I thought that maybe I'd have a chance to survive because I still had 4 life left. But he dawns up his Law by 4 Dawn to swing for neutral 5 because I had no cards in him, and that gives me a Cat Viper. Then he swings with Croc, and of course it banishes a Scratchman of Pooh. Then he swings with his Gecko Moria, his leader. And then after swinging with his leader, I got a 8-drop Kid to hand. Then he swings with Gecko Moria, and that gives me another Cat Viper. So I have 3 cards in hand, only 2k power. Then he dawned up those last 2 remaining Dawn on Virgo and swung for 9, and that was Murder, She Wrote. So that kind of sucked. Moving into round 3, I played against Luffy. And I put this in my short. His name is Gio. He has a channel called Fortress Striker, and he does a podcast called TCG Party. But it was a rather weird game. I went second because I wanted to starve him. Of course, against Luffy, you do want to balance between not giving them too many cards, but still attacking life, because if you let them wait too long, they're going to be able to play their bigger cards. So opening up against him, I had the mulligan, and my hand didn't open up too strong. So I knew I could not give him too many cards because my defense was fairly weak. So, putting up 2 Dawn, I played Killer, Blocker. And then he goes into his turn, he does his thing. So on my next turn, I end up swinging on his life. And I'm not gonna say of course it's part of the game, it happens, but his first life was Jet Pistol, and it kills my blocker. The next turn, he goes up to 5 Dawn. He plays Luffy, and he swings with Luffy, and then swings 6k with his leader. So I'm already starting to feel the pressure, early in the game. The following turn, I tried to swing on Luffy for 9k, and I think it was 8k, but he dropped 3 cards out of his hand to stop it. He wanted to protect the Luffy, and I was like, okay, well, this sucks because I didn't get to kill the Luffy, but he's down to 3 cards in hand right now. So, or 2 cards in hand right now. It was a low number. So I thought that maybe this will be the move. Well, he ends up curving into Beckman. And I get over his Luffy because his hand is so low. But I remember swinging on Beckman when he had 1 card in hand, and I swung on it for 10, and that card was Otama. And so that was a pivotal moment of me losing momentum. And then eventually off the top of his deck, he ended up getting another Beckman. And then it was weird because he had 4 life, and I didn't want to give him any more gas in hand. But he had 2 Ben Beckman, and it was very, very rough for me to set up my defenses so I wouldn't die, but also, deal with that. And it was just pretty much me dealing with his top decks for a while, but they were just pretty good top decks. And you know how Red is. Red can apply pressure to the board very easily. So this ended up happening, and then the last turn for me, he plays Robin, and then he swings in with his leader and both Ben Beckmans, and it pretty much handed me out and got rid of my blockers. And so I moved into the next turn, and there wasn't much I could do at that point. He had no cards in hand. So I was able to dawn up my leader to 9 and swing twice to clear both Beckmans, but I couldn't play Beige or Killer because his Robin was out, and I couldn't Nekomamushi to Robin because I had nothing that can swing into it on base, and so I pretty much just had to give him the handshake. So that kind of sucked, but it is what it is. Like I said, it was a pretty close game. There's lots of junctures where like 1k counter power was like what saved something that got in another turn of work. So like I said, it was close. Now, the next one was Kaido, round 4. I faced Kaido, and it was pretty interesting. I went with the aggro strat again. I did get a 10 drop out of the Kaido player. She Kaido'd me because my board was just very, very aggressive. I was playing Rhizos. Like, at one point, I think I had 2 Rhizos out, and then I had like a 1-drop Searcher, and I was just punching every turn for like 5 or 6k with the Rhizos after using the Bonnie to search. And then I was trying to protect myself with Punk Hazards, but I was drawing cards on cards on cards and just made it very hard for her to keep the ground, so she had to 10 drop me. But by the time I got 10 dropped, it was like, okay, now I can start using some of my bigger cards, and eventually just kind of led to the W. But yeah, that was kind of unfortunate because I did get a lot of my lobies up front. Unfortunate for her because I was able to start up a board that was just, like I said, wide and aggressive against the Kid player, or the King player. Wow, the King player, the Kaido player. So the next one was Blurple Kaido. That was my round 5. And Blurple Kaido, it was interesting because I see it and I was like, okay, I know how this deck balls. It might have some cool extra cards from blue, but it has like a lot of the uncounterable cards from purple and needs to destroy things. So I was like, we have to take advantage of the fact that he's at 4 life. And so I made him go first. No, wait, no, actually, I think he chose to go first because I wasn't winning a lot of die rolls today at all. But he went first, and I wanted to just punch as much as possible. So I was very, very, very aggressive. His curve was pretty cool. If I'm not mistaken, his the cards he played offensively were 2 6-drop kings. Like, he got Onigashima on curve, and then he played a 6-drop king, which blew up one of my things and ramped him. He ended up playing a 9-drop Kaido, which blew up one of my things. I got over one of the 6-drop kids, if I'm not mistaken. If you watch this video, correct me if I was wrong, but then he played another 6-drop kid, or king, and so essentially the 6-drop king and the 9-drop Kaido were holding it down. And then the last turn, he had 3 cards in hand, and so he had 3 cards in hand, 0 life, so I thought I was about to get at it. He defended himself very well the turn before. I was trying to swing out the turn before, and he prevented the game swing by playing both a Blast Breath and a Thunder Bagua from the same hand. Blast Breath and Love Love Mellow. He had 3 open, and he Blast Breath and Love Love Mellow to get out of a huge attack. So, yeah, that was that. And then the following turn, I thought that I was going to get this. So I had 1 life, and I had a blocker, and I had 8 cards in hand. And he has his leader, he has his 7-drop king, and he has his 9-drop Kaido. So I was like, it's going to be really dangerous if he destroys my blocker, because then I just have 1 life, and I have to stop 3 attacks. We can probably stop, if he plays something to kill the blocker, unless it's Who's Who, we can probably get over the leader, and then hopefully try to see, with 8 cards, my hand was pretty combo heavy. I thought that was pretty good. But I had a bunch of 2Ks, so I was like, okay, we can get over the leader likely, and then we can hopefully get over the king, and then just take the Kaido and then clap him back next turn. But I was wrong. Mans taps a full 9 for a second 9-drop Kaido, blows up my beige, and that was the momentum swing he needed for game. He literally destroyed a blocker and added an attack in the same turn. So I just had to give him the handshake because we might have been able to get out of 2 of those attacks, but we weren't getting out of all 3. Actually 4 now at this point. So yeah, that was wild. Moving up into the next one, we played against Dopey. This Dopey curved out pretty well, and that's just like kind of the name of the game. Like, he was able to play Virgo out. He was able to play, no, not Virgo. He played Dopey out. And then he, throughout the game, was able to establish double Mihawk. So I also curved out pretty well. I got a 7-drop kid. I got my 8-drop kid. I got out Law. I was able to just really, really kind of get in there. But it was the fact that, like, my little blockers are kind of putting on the work. And the moment I ran out of little blockers, it was just like the double Mihawk and Dopey. It was just too hard to sustain. There was never really a shot to get through those because, you know, once they have a healthy hand and Mihawk's on board, swinging on Mihawk is almost a waste of a turn. So I kept trying to get in on that, kept trying to race him for advantage, and on the last turn he played a Boa Hancock and was able to block with it, and so I only had one attack to get at his last life, and not his last life but his last swing because he was at 0 life. But he was able to block my first big swing with Boa, and then he was able to actually get out of my second big swing with his hand. So that was cool. Like I said, a lot of these were like really, like that's what kind of hurt a little bit. They were really, really, really close, but that's just how the game goes, especially in set 1. Round 7 was a no-show, so I got a chance to use the restroom, breathe, kind of just talk to people. And then round 8 was Zoro. So basically, we were playing. He did see 2 shanks, but by the time he was able to see both these shankses, his hand was so low that I was able to just actually swing on him for 12 and just kill the shanks and then play a blocker. And then he played another shanks, and that got me another health, but he couldn't use his leader swing because I blocked it. And I just swung in his shanks again, and I was able to stabilize and actually take the game by a classic 12k double swing. Round 9, the last round, I faced the mirror for the first and only time in the entire day. We opened up, and it was just kind of rough because I mulliganed, he mulliganed, and then I realized very quickly, no, this wasn't meant to be. I did not have a great hand for sustaining the kid mirror. I didn't have any endgame. I didn't have 7-drop. I didn't have 8-drop. I didn't have Basil. So I started being monkey mode kid. Like I was playing blockers and I was just swinging in. I used like the double attack multiple times that game. And basically by the end of the game, he actually did establish 8-drop and the 7-drop and some blockers along the way. But I was just trying to tear through it the best I could, Nekomamushiing, trying to hop in with Basil and just doing what I can. And eventually I was able to wear out the field and get the swings over the 8-drop and the 7-drop. And then after that happened, he was at like 0 life for quite some time. So it's just a matter of getting him to the turn where he could block with the 7-drop and then get swung on again. And just, yeah. His hand was unfortunately full of uncountable cards. And so once I got him to block with his 7-drop, the other swing went through for pretty much easy game. So it was weird. He had a better field, but eventually his hand was just saturated with cards. And I had the worst field, but the early game aggression got through. And that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you push them to a certain point and then they stabilize on you and you can never touch that 0 life again. So it is what it is. But that was my tournament run. It was, like I said, it was unfortunate. I think the only loss that I felt like was just not like hairline was the Luffy one, because he killed me at 4 life because I just could not give him more cards than he already had, and he saw the double bin Beckman. The rest of the losses were very close. Like the Dopey literally was just one drop law away from him losing. Wow, I'm gonna blank now. The other Dopey, like that Boa was the saving grace. It's just, there was a lot of stuff that was like, even the Blurple Crocodile, we didn't have a long game. Like I think I died on 9 Dawn, but that second like purple 9-drop Kaido just broke my back. So there were a lot of times where it was this close. So that being said, I will be reviewing my green deck, but I'm also looking at like red again just to make sure. But I will be practicing my butt off for Dallas, and I will be going there in 2 weeks' time. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the tournament breakdown. I will be, like I said, getting into so much content this week. So stay tuned. And like I said, we are 50 subs away from hitting 4,000. That is crazy. I hope you guys had some fun. If you guys saw me at the Treasure Cup, just know, like if we took a picture, I will be doing something special with that. It'll be a cool time. And I will see you in the next upload. Later.